إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. In continuation of our book Al-Adabul Mufrad by Al-Imam Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Ismail Al-Bukhari rahimahullah, we will note that we have spent the first 20 chapters in this book talking about Birrul Walidain. We have spent the first 20 chapters in this book talking about Birrul Walidain. And the last thing we talked about was Birru man kana yasiluhu abuhu, that the child is dutiful and kind towards those persons that his parents were kind to, those persons that his parents loved and held in high esteem, those persons that your parents were good to. The chapter about being good to them. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam told us in the last hadith we read under that chapter heading that inna abarra al-birri an yasila ar-rajulu ahla wuddi abihi. Inna abarra al-birri an yasila ar-rajulu ahla wuddi abihi. That's from the most kind, from the best of kindness to parents. From the best aspects of being kind and dutiful to our parents is that أن يصل الرجل أهل ود أبيه, that the individual should connect ties, should maintain good ties with those who his parents were good to. This will make us understand that this ummah has paid very, very good attention to Birrul Walidain. If in the first 20 chapter of a book, all that we have heard, all that we have read about is how does Islam command us and obligate us to be kind to our parents, to be kind to our fathers, our mothers, to speak to them nicely, to be the rewards for being kind and nice to parents, and the punishment for being unkind and not being compassionate and nice in our character to parents. What are the punishments for that? We read that Allah's curse is upon the one who curses his parents, and likewise those others who become very bad in their relationship with their parents. We also went on to read the reports regarding not abusing a person so that the person does not abuse our parents. All of these go to show how important our religion has placed dutifulness to parents. After that, we also went through narrations about what do we do, how do we still continue to show kindness to our parents after the parents have passed away. We read a number of reports regarding that, and then came to the issues on showing kindness even to the friends of our parents after our parents have passed away. This goes to show that it is not appropriate, and I repeat, it is not appropriate for a Muslim not to be kind to his parents or her parents. It is not an appropriate thing to do at all for a Muslim child to be a disobedient child to the parents, to be a child that caused his parents to shed tears. And we also, of course, gave the limits to these, that being kind and dutiful to parents does not involve compromising the religion. We read the verses of the Quran in Surah Al-Luqman, in Surah Al-Ankabut, where Allah gave those restrictions, and the narrations in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave the restrictions. We recall the story of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. All what we are trying to say now is we have paid good attention, inshallah, to Birrul Walidain, and therefore each of us and all of us should try to be better as a child to his parents or her parents. We all should make good efforts for those of us who have the relationship between we and our parents not too good, we should go back and rectify the situation. From the reports we have read here was the report that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the one who had made his parents to cry, to go back to them. He says, "Irji'i ilayhima fa'ashhikhuma kama abkaytahuma." Go back to your parents and make them smile as you had made them to cry. Meaning that for those of us who have had a not too good relationship with our parents, before we pass away, before death catches up upon us, we still have a great opportunity to rectify the situation and be better children to our parents. And that by so doing, we'll be fulfilling a major matter of obligation as far as our Islam is concerned. This is the first point I like to make here. The second point I like to make here is that for those of us, and bismillah, all of us, who make good efforts to be upon the Sunnah, we must understand that a major aspect of being upon the Sunnah is to be nice and kind to our parents. A major aspect of being upon the Sunnah is to be nice and kind to our parents. We must not be a child who will say, oh, people are not upon the Sunnah, people are not upon the Sunnah, and then you are so failing, you fail in the matters regarding your parents. We have seen how the companions, Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Urwa ibn Zubayr, Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and the rest amongst the companions. We have seen how seriously they took the affair of being kind to parents. So from the major aspects of our salafiyah, as far as our akhlaq is concerned, is to be sure that our relationship with our parents is sound. Even for those of us whose parents might have passed away, we must not forget other aspects of beautifulness to parents who have passed away. By being kind to the friends of those parents, by being kind to those to whom our parents used to be kind when they were alive, and by giving out sadaqah and doing all other aspects of being kind to parents after the parents have passed away that we have read about, and perhaps others that we might not have mentioned. We should be sure that being kind to parents is not a matter that starts and ends. It does not start and end. It goes on and on until the child himself passes away and then redirects dutifulness to his own children who become dutiful to him, and then pray for him and then his own parents too. So we must be sure that from the aspects of our perfecting our sunnah is to perfect our relationship with our parents. I beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this great task an easy one for us, and to make it a task that He will accept from us as an act of worship. Today, inshallah, we intend to read through 4 chapters, bismillah. We hope to conclude the matters regarding dutifulness to parents specifically today. So we intend to read 4 chapters, bismillah, today. The first 2 chapters have 1 hadith each. The chapter لا تقطع من كان يصل أباك فيطفئ نورك. We'll read this hadith under that chapter, the hadith of Amr ibn Uthman, the son of Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. We'll read his hadith. We read the next hadith that follows. The next hadith under the chapter that follows it. Babun al-wuddu yutawarasu. Babun al-wuddu yutawaras. That is hadith number 43. And then we go on to read hadith 44, 45, and 46, inshallah. We'll stop it there, and then in the class tomorrow, bismillah, we will start with Babu wujubi silatir rahim. After the parents, how about the rest of our relatives? How do we relate with them as Muslims? So today, inshallah, our first point of call will be on hadith number 42. Hadith number 42. Under the chapter heading, Babun la taqta' man kana yasilu abaka fayutfa nuruk. La taqta' man kana yasilu abaka fayutfa nuruk. That is hadith number 42. Al-Imam al-Bukhari has reported that hadith from his Shaykh Bishr ibn Muhammad. So he says, أخبرنا بشر ibn محمد قال أخبرنا عبد الله قال أخبرنا عبد الله بن لاحق قال أخبرني سعد بن عبادة الزرقي أن أباه قال كنت جالسا في مسجد المدينة مع عمرو بن عثمان فمر بنا عبد الله بن سلام متكئا على ابن أخيه فنفذ عن المجلس ثم عطف عليه فرجع عليهم فقال ما شئت عمرو بن عثمان ما شئت عمرو بن عثمان مرتين أو ثلاثة هو الذي بعث محمدا بالحق إنه لفي كتاب الله عز وجل مرتين لا تقطع من كان يصل أباك فيدفع بذلك نورك. The chapter heading is لا تقطع من كان يصل أباك فيدفع نورك. Do not cut off relations with those persons that your parents, your father, would connect with good relations, so that so that your light will not be put out, so that your light will not be put off. Some of the scholars have explained that لا تقطع من كان يصل أباك فيطفأ نورك. Do not cut off relations with those with whom your parents, your father especially, would connect ties فيطفأ نورك, so that your light is not put off. They say because acts of obedience to Allah, they are a means of light for the individual. When someone performs salah, gives sadaqah, and all of these, they are means of light for the individual. They say likewise the acts of sins, they are means of azolama, they are means of darkness for the individual. So every good deed brings about light for the individual, and every sinful deed brings about darkness for the individual. And so since Birrul Walidain is from amongst the major deeds of obedience to Allah, then it means it's from the major means of light for that individual. And since Hukukul Walidain is from the major means of worship in this, of distancing ourselves from worship, that now in turn brings about darkness for that individual. It means when the child is dutiful, he gains light. When he is undutiful, he loses his light. They say from this aspect, this chapter heading will be correct in its meaning. This chapter heading will be correct in its meaning if we consider it, generally speaking, from the angle that acts of obedience to Allah, generally speaking, are means of earning light, and that acts of disobedience are means of earning darknesses for the individual. May Allah protect us. That if we understand it from this aspect, then we will know that when a person cuts off relationship with those with whom his parents used to connect relationship, then that is dangerously from the aspects of earning darkness by that individual. I hope that this explanation is clear regarding this chapter heading. So how does cutting off relationship with those with whom our parents used to connect relationship, how does it bring darkness to us? It brings darkness to us because, generally speaking, acts of disobedience to Allah bring about darknesses for that individual. So this chapter, in it, Al-Imam al-Bukhari reported hadith from his Shaykh Bishr ibn Muhammad, that is Abu Muhammad al-Marwazi. He said, أخبرنا Abdullah. Abdullah here was not ascribed, but he is Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, Abu Abdurrahman. Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak al-Hanbali, a great scholar of hadith and fiqh and aqidah. Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak was the one who reported this hadith and said, أخبرنا Abdullah ibn Lahiq. Abdullah ibn Lahiq is al-Makki. He said, أخبرني Sa'd ibn Ubadah al-Zuraki. Sa'd ibn Ubadah al-Zuraki now said, Abahu. He is reporting from his father, Ubadah al-Ansari. So the father of Sa'd ibn Ubadah al-Suraqi, who has reported this incident, was Ubadah al-Ansari. He said, Kuntu jalisan fi masjid al-Madina. I was sitting down in the masjid of Medina, Ma'a Amri ibn Uthman. I was sitting together with Amr ibn Uthman. Amr ibn Uthman is the son of Uthman ibn Affan. Amr ibn Uthman is the son of Uthman ibn Affan, radiyallahu anhu, the eminent companion of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. فَمَرَّ بِنَا Abdullah ibn Salam. Abdullah ibn Salam, one of the scholars amongst the companions, who was before his Islam amongst the Ahbar of the Yahud. He was amongst the great scholars amongst the Yahud during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We remember he is popularly known for that statement that Inna al-Yahud qawmun buhtun. Abdullah ibn Salam, this companion of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, was amongst the people of knowledge amongst the Jews in Medina when the Prophet came after migration. On the day the Prophet came, he went to see the Prophet because he was very knowledgeable and he had known that the Prophet had been talked about in their own book, At-Tawrat, that he was going to emerge from amongst the Arabs. So he went to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and started looking at him. There are reports that he asked him about 3 questions and that he said that only a messenger of Allah would know the answers to those questions. At the end of it all, he told the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that the Jews in al-Yahud qawmun buhtun. The Jews are a very treacherous people. They're very wicked people who base their lives upon falsehood. In al-Yahud qawmun buhtun. These people, these Jews, they're very, very treacherous people. And then he told the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, if you ask them about me, they will praise me. But if they hear that I have accepted Islam, they will dispraise me. And that was actually what happened. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asked the Jews about Abdullah ibn Salam. They said he was noble amongst us, the son of the noble amongst us, the son of the noble amongst us, the son of the noble amongst us. And then he came out and said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, that he had accepted Islam, and Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu, and that he testified that the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam was a servant, is a servant of Allah and his messenger. And they turned it and said, you are despicable, the son of the despicable, the son of the despicable. And then he made that statement. He said, Prophet, you see, I had told you that in al-Yahud qawmun buhtun. That was Abdullah ibn Salam, radiyallahu anhu. He is from amongst the people that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam guaranteed al-Jannah. Abdullah ibn Salam is not from amongst the 10 that he guarantees al-Jannah in a single statement. But from amongst the companions of the Prophet radiyallahu anhum sallallahu alayhi wa sallam who were guaranteed al-Jannah was Abdullah ibn Salam. So Abdullah ibn Salam radiyallahu anhu was a learned person from amongst the Jews, and he became learned also from amongst the Muslims. He gained 2 lives. He was learned from amongst the Jews, and when the Prophet came, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he accepted Islam and became from amongst the learned, amongst the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So Ubadah al-Ansari, radiyallahu rahimahullah, said he was in the masjid in Medina together with Amr ibn Uthman, Amr, the son of Uthman ibn Affan. فَمَرَّ بِنَا Abdullah ibn Salam. Abdullah ibn Salam now passed by us, muttaki'an ala ibn akhi. He was reclining of one of his nephews. When Abdullah ibn Salam passed by this group of people who were sitting, he was reclining on one of his nephews. فَنَفَذَ عَنِ الْمَجْلِسِ. He turned away. He looked away from the sitting, from those who were sitting down there. ثُمَّ عَطَفَ عَلَيْهِ. Then he suddenly turned towards them. فَرَجَعَ عَلَيْهِ. Then he went to them. رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُ فَقَالَ. And then he said, مَا شِئْتَ عَمْرَ بْنَ عُثْمَانِ. مَا شِئْتَ عَمْرَ بْنَ عُثْمَانِ. مَا شِئْتَ.
Ma shayt, ma shayt. Like to say, Isna' ma shayt. Do what you like, O Amr ibn Uthman. Do what you like, O Amr ibn Uthman. Do what you like, O Amr ibn Uthman. He was talking to the son of Uthman ibn Affan. وَالَّذِي بَعْثَ مُحَمَّدًا بِالْحَقِّ. I swear by the one who has raised Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with the truth. إِنَّهُ لَفِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ. It occurs in the book of Allah Azza wa Jalla. He said that marratain, twice. It is certain in the book of Allah. It is certain in the book of Allah. The book of Allah that he intends here in this report is what? At-Tawrat. The book of Allah that he intends here is what? At-Tawrat. And he wanted to say what is mentioned in that book, that لا تقطع من كان يصل أباك. لا تقطع من كان يصل أباك. Do not disconnect yourself from a person who was nice and kind to your father. فَيُطْفَأَ بِذَلِكَ نُورُكَ. Because your light will become turned off. Your light will become put off if you do that. If you disconnect and become unkind to someone who was kind to your parents, who was kind to your father. Abdullah ibn Salam was saying this to Amr ibn Uthman, which meant that Abdullah ibn Salam was uncomfortable with the way that he had been treated by Amr ibn Uthman. And Amr ibn Uthman is the son of Uthman ibn Affan. And Uthman ibn Affan used to treat Abdullah ibn Salam with respect and esteem. Abdullah ibn Salam used to be treated with esteem by Uthman ibn Affan. So how come his son Amr would not treat Abdullah correctly? So as Abdullah ibn Salam moved away, he noticed that perhaps he was not given an appropriate dealing by Amr. So he wanted to tell Amr the dangers of not dealing with him as is appropriate. So he warned him and said, look, it is written in the book of Allah, it is written in the book of Allah that لا تقطع من كان يصل أباك. Do not disconnect the one who used to treat your parents, who will treat your parents with kindness, فَيُطْفَأَ بِذَلِكَ نُورُكَ. So that as a result of that, your light does not become turned off. I hope that the story is clear to us. Abdullah ibn Salam was uncomfortable with the way Amr ibn Uthman, the son of Uthman ibn Affan, related with him. Despite the fact that Abdullah ibn Salam had very nice dealings and relationship with Uthman ibn Affan. So he wanted to tell him what he had read from the past books about a child who would not be dutiful to those who were kind and very compassionate with their own parents. So he related this, and Al-Imam al-Bukhari has placed this report under this chapter heading, that not to be dutiful and kind to the parents, to the friends of our parents, not being dutiful to the parents, to the friends of our parents would be or may be a means for an individual to lose his life. Because of course, that will count as from the aspects of Uququl Walidain. May Allah protect us from this. But we will not stay long here because this hadith, Al-Imam Muhammad Nasiruddin al-Albani has mentioned it to be a weak hadith. The reporter Sa'd ibn Ubadah al-Zuraqi is majhul. He is not a known person to report accurate narrations. So Al-Imam al-Bukhari has placed it here for us to know that it is one of the things that had been said about being unkind, being undutiful to the parents, for us to know. But the scholars have said that the meaning of this is correct from the aspect of the fact that every act of sin is something that brings darkness to the individual committing the sin. And since being unkind to the parent is a great major destructive sin, definitely it means that the darkness that will bring about for that individual will overrun the light of that individual from other aspects of his worship, unless he is so careful. Otherwise, he will be overrun by the darknesses of his Uququl Walidain, from being unkind and undutiful to those to whom his own parents used to be kind and dutifulness to our parents. It insists that we are kind and dutiful to our parents. We are also kind and dutiful to the friends of our parents. Islam does not restrict dutifulness to our parents. We must be kind and dutiful to our parents. We must also be kind and dutiful to the friends of our parents. When we are kind and dutiful to our parents, we gain life, because acts of obedience bring about life for the individual, generally speaking. And when we are undutiful to the friends of our parents, the individual loses his life. Why? Because acts of disobedience generally are means of darkness for that individual who carries out that act of disobedience. I hope that this hadith is clear and the meaning is properly placed. But as a statement directly like this, Abdullah ibn Salam has cited it from one of the books that has been revealed by Allah, and that's At-Tawrat in the past. And we all know what happened to the Tawrat before the Prophet came, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah had told us in the Quran that the Jews and the Christians had distorted their books. يُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَ عَنْ مَوَاضِعِهِ وَنَسُوا حَظًّا مِمَّا ذُكِّرُوا بِهِ. They had turned those books in the direction that they wanted. But still, these are some of the remnants that could be in the book. So as we treat أخبار أهل الكتاب, the reports that have been given by the people of the book, we just hear it. We listen to it. Even though the message in this is not far away from the generality of the message of Islam regarding our parents and regarding the friends of our parents. I hope that this hadith is appropriately situated in our mind, inshallah. We quickly move to the next bab. Babun al-wuddu yutawarafu. Al-wuddu yutawarafu. The chapter that al-wudd, kindness and good relations, love, yutawarafu, they may be inherited. Love and kindness are inherited. That is to say, if we have parents who showed love to people, who gave people gifts, who maintained very good relationship with people, it is possible that you find a child being upon that kind of a character. It is possible that when you find a father being beautiful, being kind to people, being nice to people in his approach and his dealings, it is possible that we find the child inheriting this character from the same parent. Al-wuddu yutawarafu. Kindness, dutifulness, love, showing love to people may be inherited. And this is what we have seen. Many a time do we find children loving those people who were loved by their parents. And in fact, sometimes when you ask, why do you love someone? You say, my father likes it. Sometimes the child finds it inexplicable. You love what your parents love. Likewise, people hate what the parents hate. You find a child disliking something. He may not be able to explain why he disliked that thing, but he gained that dislike from his parents. I have seen this a lot with a lot of people. You find that they love what their parents love, and then they dislike what their parents dislike. And it's a major lesson for those of us who are parents, to be sure that if you want your children upon any act of goodness, you start doing it. If you want your children to avoid particular acts of disobedience, then you must run away from it. Why? Al-wuddu yutawarafu. Good love, kindness, good deeds, good character, good traits are inherited. Likewise, bad traits are inherited. When you see some parents behave very badly, don't worry, just look at their children. You are going to see that bad character inside that child. May Allah protect us. Of course, because children also copy their parents, and one way or the other, they have a way of becoming inclined to the same ways of their parents. Not far away from me, I have a parent who is very, very nosy. Not far away from me. He's of our age mate. He is very nosy. He wants to know and say and have a say. He wants to look at. He wants to have every knowledge of the privacies of the rest of the family and the community. And exactly you find the children upon the same thing. They spy at you, they look at you. I was talking to a professor one day, and one of the children, the wife was just behind the window listening to my discussion with the professor. So, but the person was not aware that I was out of the area, and then I saw the person stuck to the window area, eavesdropping myself and the person that we are discussing inside the masjid. So you find this kind of a character. It has been inherited by the children of these kinds of people. Likewise, if you are nice, if you are good, if your attitude to people and to things are usually very good, you show good disposition to issues, very, very, very likely you are going to find your children upon the same thing. One of the scholars reported that that was Sheikh Abdurrauf ibn Abdul Muhsin Al-Abbad, that he read that a child saw a major signpost discouraging smoking, that smokers are liable to diseases and deaths and all of this, and that child stood in front of the signpost and said, my own father smokes and there's no problem with that. Why? Because at home his father was a chain smoker. So he found it insulting that it will be said that smokers will die. Of course, the child wouldn't want the father to die, and his father smokes. So he's saying that his own father smokes, and smoking for his father is something that was right. So this is the kind of way children inherit traits and attitudes from their parents. Likewise, if the attitudes were good, if the attitudes are praiseworthy, you find out that the children will take to these traits from the parents. That's why ulama insists that the first means of piety for the child is for the parents themselves to lay the foundations of piety inside their homes. When Maryam, the mother of Isa alayhi salam, was approached after she gave birth to Isa alayhi salam, what did they say to her? Ya ukhta Harun, ma kana abuki mara'a sawin, wa ma kanat ummuki saghiyya. O daughter of Imran, your mother, your father was not imru'un saw, was not an evil person. وَمَا كَانَتْ أُمُّكِ صَغِيًّا, and neither was your mother a woman who was free on the street, who was indecent. So meaning that if you have a pious father and you have a pious child, and you have a pious mother, you have a pious father, you have a pious mother, how do you come about a child without having married? So this means the piety of the parents necessarily is taken over by, inshallah, the piety by the child out of piety. When you don't find this occurring, they are one out of those cases out of the norm. The cases out of the norm are cases when you find the parent is nice, is good in his character and his behavior, and then the child takes to something other than that. So this is what the chapter heading is all about. We are going to read the hadith, inshallah, interpret it, and then move to the next chapter. The chapter says, Babu al-wudu tawaruf. The chapter about the fact that love and good character, good traits, yutawarufu, they are inherited. They can be transferred from the parents to their children. There, Al-Imam al-Bukhari also reported that hadith from his Shaykh Abu Muhammad al-Marwazi, Bishr ibn Muhammad, who said, Akhbarana Abdullah. The same hadith has come from Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. قال أخبرنا Muhammad ibn Abdurrahman al-Mulayki. This Muhammad ibn Abdurrahman al-Mulayki, he is al-Mulayki, is the one reporting on the authority of Muhammad ibn Fulan ibn Talha. He is reporting from Muhammad ibn Fulan ibn Talha, and he is reporting from Abu Bakr ibn Hazm and رجل من أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. Abu Bakr ibn Hazm is reporting the hadith from one of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم, who said that كفيتك أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم said, قال كفيتك أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم قال, I would suffice you to tell you that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Inna al-wudda yutawarasu. Inna al-wudda yutawarasu. Good, love, kindness is inherited. Love is inherited. Kindness is inherited. Love is inherited. Inna al-wudda yutawarasu. Kindness can be transferred from the parents to the children. And of course, we know likewise other traits. We know from the Sunnah that traits, people become of certain traits from two angles. A person can be patient from two angles. A person can be benevolent from two angles. All good traits, likewise all bad traits, they come from two angles. They are either innate in him, the way Allah has created him, that will say they are GBD, or they learn to be like that. They learn to be like that. And then we'll say that is maktasadi. Traits could be jibiliya or maktasadiya. Traits, character, noble character, likewise evil character. They can be innate, intrinsic in the individual, inherited from inside himself, from his parents, and they could be learned. We remember that the Prophet told us, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, whoever learns to be patient, Allah makes him become patient. That means we can learn being patient. That means we can learn being patient. We'll come to those hadiths in this book. The point here is that traits come to an individual from two angles. Either from learning, you acquire it, it's called maktasadi, yani iktasabahu. He learned it, he acquired it. Or that they are jibili, that is, it is from his tabi'ah. It's from his intrinsic, the way Allah has created him. These two will be combined regarding the father and the child. You can find a child actually inheriting from his father or mother, or the both of them, good traits, and then learning from them. Why? Because the first group of people from whom the children learn are the parents. So the child can get the two, can get the traits from two angles from the parents. He got it from them by way of their innate character. They are naturally good people. In their innate, they have in their innate intrinsic way that Allah has created them. They are nice people. They are very good people. They are not coarse people. They relate to people nicely. The child can inherit this from his parents. And then when the parents actually now show kindness to people, the child can also learn it from the parents. So you see the position in which the parents are regarding their children and regarding noble character. The children are almost going to take after you. So don't complain about your children. If you find any character, missing in them that they are supposed to have, check yourself first as a parent. Check yourself first as a parent. Or if you're taking them to schools, to hostels, to boarding house, then check. Did they learn that character from there? Because characters are acquired in two ways. They are either intrinsic in the individual or they are acquired by that individual. But the point here in this hadith is that compassion, kindness to people, it can be transmitted, it can be acquired, inherited by the child from the parents. But let's not forget, the point here is that if you are nice to particular people, your children also tend to be nice to those same people. This is the point that is being made in this hadith. But fortunately or unfortunately, this hadith is a very, very weak hadith. It has two points of weakness that the scholars have mentioned regarding it. The first of them is that Muhammad ibn Abdurrahman al-Mulaiki is weak reporter of hadith. Muhammad ibn Abdurrahman al-Mulaiki is weak reporter of hadith. Secondly is that Muhammad ibn Fulan ibn Talha is an unknown reporter of hadith. So this hadith is weak. But the point in it, the message in it is correct. And Al-Imam al-Bukhari already told us about its weakness when he told us those who have reported the hadith. We have mentioned repeatedly that when a scholar of hadith mentions his isnad between himself and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam regarding a hadith. That means that he already told us whether that hadith is authentic or not. It remains for us, because of the level of our knowledge, to recognize that declaration of the hadith to be weak or poor. So nobody should say, why is Bukhari telling us this hadith in his book Al-Adabul Mufrad and the hadith is weak? And he has not told us, he had already told us that the hadith is weak by mentioning the names of the reporters. Each time any scholar of hadith in the state of Bukhari and all of that reads this hadith, he knows from the very beginning that this hadith is weak. The next question is, why has he included it in this book? He wants us to know those things that have been said about matters like this that have not been reported with fabricated narrations. You see, from all the hadiths that we have read in this book, there is no hadith that has been fabricated. Even those that have been mentioned to be weak, those weaknesses have been very, very slight weaknesses. But don't forget, these kinds of reports have been mentioned. So if you hear somebody say that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that "Inna al-wudda yutawarafu," love and compassion can be inherited, you can say no. It is true that love and compassion can be inherited from other ahadith. But like this, what you have said, the Prophet did not say so. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I hope that the matter is clear. You can say yes, it is true that love can be inherited. Compassion, being kind to people can be inherited. But don't say the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that al-wuddu yutawarasu, that love and compassion and kindness can be inherited. Don't ascribe it as a clear-cut statement to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the Prophet had made statements in other authentic reports that show that the meaning of this statement is true. I hope that this hadith is also clear with us, inshallah. So quickly we move to the next chapter with the little time that we have. That is Babun or Babu la yusanni ar-rajulu abahu wa la yajlisu qablahu wa la yamshi amamahu. Babu la yusanni ar-rajulu abahu wa la yajlisu qablahu wa la yamshi amamahu. The chapter regarding La yusanni ar-rajulu abahu. The individual should not call his father by his name. I am Ibrahim Abdurrauf. I must never call my father and say Abdurrauf. I must never call my father and say Abdurrauf. Look at our religion. So we have lessons regarding that too. I usually say when you find a Muslim not behaving appropriately, he has not learned the Islam correctly. Because Islam has taught us to be appropriate in everything that we do. So we must not call our fathers by their names. You want to refer to your father, you say, Abdurrazak. Your name is Abdurrahman ibn Abdurrazak. You, Abdurrahman, you want to refer to your daddy, Abdurrazak. And then you say, Abdurrazak. This is from Uqukul Walidin. We must stop it. May Allah protect us all. وَلَا يَجْلِسُ قَبْلَهُ. The child should not sit down before his father. This is from the manners of our religion. The child would not sit down. He comes in a place with his father. His father had not sat down. He found a place, he sat down. The father was still standing. Don't sit down when you are standing together with your father. Don't find a seat and sit down when your father had not sat down. This is from bad character as far as Islam is concerned. And then it says, وَلَا يَمْشِي أَمَامَهُ. Likewise, don't walk in front of your father. You are moving, perhaps going to the masjid. You know how children go to the masjid with parents. They walk down the street to the masjid. Don't walk in front of him. Don't walk in front of your father. Walk behind him or anywhere else, but not in front of him. Ulama say, except when you have just walked in front of him by way of clearing the road to be sure that there is no evil on the way. But when there is no such situation, don't walk in front of your father. They say this is a chapter about which the early Muslims have taught the rest of us how to behave. And quickly, Al-Imam al-Bukhari reported that hadith from his Shaykh, Abu Rabi'. So he says, حدثنا أبو الربيع عن إسماعيل بن زكريا قال حدثنا هشام بن عروة عن أبيه أو غيره أن أبا هريرة رضي الله عنه أبصر رجلين فقال لأحدهما ما هذا منك فقال أبي فقال لا تسميه باسمه ولا تمشي أمامه ولا تجلس قبله. Al-Imam al-Bukhari said حدثنا أبو الربيع. He reported this hadith from his Shaykh Abu Rubayh and Ismail ibn Zakaria. Abu Rubayh has reported hadith from Ismail ibn Zakaria, who has reported from Hisham ibn Urwa. Hisham ibn Urwa is the grandchild of Asma bint Abi Bakr as-Siddiq. So he has reported this hadith from Hisham ibn Urwa, and Hisham ibn Urwa has reported it from his father, Rahimahullah, Urwa ibn Zubayr. Urwa ibn Zubayr is the younger brother of Abdullah ibn Zubayr, both of whom are from the children of Asma bint Abi Bakr as-Siddiq. Anna Aba Huraira. Urwa ibn Zubayr reported that Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu absara rajulayn. He saw two men. فَقَالَ لِأَحَدِهِمَا. So he asked one of them. Two people were walking. Abu Huraira saw the two of them walking. So he asked one of them, مَا هَذَا مِنْكَ. How is this person to you? يعني مَا قَرَابَةُ هَذَا مِنْكَ. What is your relationship? What is your family relationship with this person? فَقَالَ أَبِي. The person that he asked, the second person was his father. He saw two people walking. He stopped and asked one of them, who is this person to you? He was asking one of them regarding the second. Who is this person to you? And the second person said, the first person who was asked said, my father, meaning the second person he was working with was his father, meaning that we now have a father and a son. They were walking, and Abu Huraira saw them, radiyallahu anhu, and asked them, and it became clear that it was a father walking together with his son. Then he advised the son, La tusammihi bismihi. Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu now told that son, do not ever call your father by his name. Don't call your father by his name. If you are, I'm just giving an example, Muhammad ibn Rashid. Don't call your father Rashid. Don't say Rashid. Don't say that to your father. Don't say it. You call him by good name. Abi, or Baba, or all other ways that the people of the world have called their parents, apart from with respect and humility and esteem, apart from mentioning his name. Don't mention your father's name when you call him. وَلَا تَمْشِ أَمَامَهُ. Abu Huraira radiyallahu anhu also told him, do not also walk in his front. Don't walk in front of your father. And then he says, وَلَا تَجْلِسْ قَبْلَهُ. Do not also sit down before him. Don't sit down before your father sits down. You're in a gathering. Everybody was standing. Your father wants to sit down. You sat down before him. Don't do that. Don't do that before him. Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu said, La tusammihi bismihi. Do not call your father by his name. Wala tamshi amamahu. Do not walk in front of him. Wala tajlis qablahu. Do not also sit before him. This makes us understand. These are our salafs. I've always repeated this because these classes are means of rectification, inshallah, for me first and then for the rest of us listening. Each of us should begin to look for a way of rectifying ourselves after we hear these lessons. We should not call our parents by their names. We should not sit down before them. We should not walk in front of them. Is it a parent that you do all this to? Now you become bold enough to become an indecent child to that parent? Should you now become an indecent child to that parent? The parent that you have been prohibited from calling by his name. You have been prohibited from sitting down before him. You have been prohibited from walking in front of him. Is it now appropriate to be indecent in your speech or in your character to that parent, and then you come back and see people and say, Ayuhanna, oh people come to the Sunnah, accept the Sunnah, strip the strict upon the Sunnah. You yourself have failed upon an obligatory aspect of the Sunnah. So we must make sure that we rectify ourselves and we rectify the people around us. And one of the major things we have to rectify in our ways is the dealings with our parents, our fathers and our mothers. Of course, let's not forget the restrictions that the religion has placed on it. And we had read those restrictions too. That وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَنْ تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. If they make efforts and pressurize you, Allah and tushrik, that you should join partners with me or commit sins, disobey me. Wala tutrihuma, don't also follow them. And of course, the child who has parents who passed away, who were non-Muslims, is not allowed to pray for those parents. And that when the child sees that these parents are very haughty, very strong, and very dangerous regarding the child's sin upon Islam, he moves away a bit from them, as we read in Surah Al-Mumtahana or Mumtahina. Yes, these restrictions are known. But the basic rule is that the child should be nice and kind to his parents or to her parents, as the case may be. I hope that this advice of Abu Huraira is something that we take to. He said, Rabi'ul anhu, la tusammihi bismihi, wa la tamshi amamahu, wa la tajlis qablahu. He advised the son not to name his father, call his father by his name, wa la tamshi amamahu. Do not walk in front of your father, wa la tajlis qablahu. Do not also sit before your father finds a seat. You have sat down. Don't do that. It is from bad manners, from what Islam has taught us. Let's quickly read the last chapter regarding Birrul Walidain, and then we reserve the class tomorrow, inshallah, for Silatul Rahimi. We'll be starting the discourses on connecting family ties, inshallah. But the last chapter regarding Birrul Walidain is Hal yukanni abahu. Is it allowed for a child to call his father by his kunya? You are Abu Abdullah. Is it allowed for the rest of your children, Abdul Rahman, Abdul Razak, Fatima, Rashida, and all the rest? Is it allowed for them to say, Abu Abdullah, I am Abu Naasir? Is it allowed for my children to refer to me as Abu Naasir? Because I have heard a few brothers when they visited us, and they heard my children say Abu Naasir. One of them wondered, even this small one is referring to you as Abu Naasir. Is that lawful? This is what Al-Imam al-Bukhari will address here. He says, حدثنا عبد الرحمن بن شيبة قال أخبرني يونس بن يحيى ابن نباتة يونس بن يحيى ابن نباتة عن عبيد الله بن موهب عن شهر بن حوشب قال خرجنا مع ابن عمر فقال له سالم الصلاة يا أبا عبد الرحمن. Al-Imam al-Bukhari reported from his teacher Abdul Rahman ibn Shayba. Abdul Rahman ibn Shayba said, أخبرني يونس ibn Yahya ibn Nubat. Yunus ibn Yahya ibn Nubata is the teacher of Abdul Rahman ibn Shayba in this report. And he is reporting from Ubaydullah ibn Mawhab. Ubaydullah ibn Mawhab was reporting from Shahr ibn Hawshab. We had discussed about Shahr ibn Hawshab, and we said that the scholars of Hadith have two views regarding him. Some of them view that he's a weak reporter of Hadith. This has been since the past times and up to the present time. The people like Sheikh Al-Albani rahimahullah is of the view with those among the scholars who say that Shahr ibn Hawshab is a weak reporter of Hadith. But Sheikh Muhammad ibn Adam al-Ethiopi is upon the view that Shahr ibn Hawshab is a reliable reporter of Hadith. And that's also the view of the likes of Al-Imam al-Zahabi rahimahullah and others amongst the scholars of Hadith. And this is the opinion, Allahu Akbar, that has been clear to me to be correct. That Shahr ibn Hawshab is a reliable reporter of Hadith. So if you read in some prints that this Hadith is weak, it is because of the weakness regarding Shahr ibn Hawshab. So for those of us who hold Shahr ibn Hawshab to be an authentic, reliable reporter of Hadith, we are going to hold that the least ruling of this Hadith is that it is Hasan. And that is what I consider to be correct. Allahu A'lam. Shahr ibn Hawshab said, Kharajna ma'a ibn Umar. So we see that Shahr ibn Hawshab was from amongst the Tabi'un. He was from amongst the Tabi'un, amongst the students of Abdullah ibn Umar. He said, we went out with Abdullah ibn Umar, فَقَالَ لَهُ Salim. So the son of Abdullah ibn Umar, Salim, he was calling his father, and then he said, As-salata ya Aba Abdurrahman. It's time for salah. As-salah. Ja'a aw hadara waqtu salah. As-salah ya Aba Abdurrahman. He was calling his father, Abdullah ibn Umar. He referred to him as what? Abu Abdurrahman. Because that's the kunya of Abdullah ibn Umar. Abdullah ibn Umar's kunya is what? Abu Abdurrahman. And that was the name, that by which his son Salim had called him. This means that it is lawful for a child to refer to his father by his kunya. So if you are Abu Naasir, it is lawful for your child to refer to you as Abu Naasir. If you are Abu Farida, it is lawful for the rest of your children and Farida herself to refer to you as Abu Farida. It is lawful for your children to refer to you as Abu Maryam, and that will not mean an insult, because here Salim referred to his father Abdullah ibn Umar, whose kunya was Abu Abdurrahman. He referred to him as what? Abu Abdurrahman. The next hadith, hadith number 46. Al-Imam al-Bukhari says, قال Abu Abdullah, يعني al-Bukhari, Al-Imam al-Bukhari said, حدثنا أصحابنا. Our companions, our teachers reported to us, and Waki, and Sufyan, and Abdullah ibn Dinar, and Ibn Umar qala. They reported from Waki ibn al-Jarrah, the teacher of Imam Ahmad, and Sufyan, and that is Sufyan ibn Uyayna, Sufyan al-Thawri, and Abdullah ibn Dinar. Abdullah ibn Dinar is Mawla Abdullah ibn Umar, and Abdullah ibn Umar is the person about whom this statement is reported. That Abdullah ibn Umar said, Lakin Abu Hafsin Umar qada. Lakin Abu Hafsin Umar qada. Lakin Abu Hafs Umar qada. Abdullah ibn Umar was giving a statement and then he said, Lakin. But as for Abu Hafs Umar qada, this was his ruling. The point here is that Abdullah ibn Umar referred to his father Umar in this hadith as what? Abu Hafs. So we see Abdullah ibn Umar referred to his father as Abu Hafs. And in the first hadith, in the first after, Salim, the son of Ibn Umar, referred to Ibn Umar as what? Abu Abdurrahman. This means this was something they did. Salim will refer to his own father Ibn Umar as what? Abu Abdurrahman. And Ibn Umar will refer to his own father Umar radiallahu anhu as what? Abu Hafs radiallahu anhu. So this means that it is something that was known amongst the early Muslims, that they would refer to their fathers with his kunya. And having a kunya was something that was common amongst the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And those who came after them. You hardly find a Muslim in that time who did not have a kunya, Abu Abdullah, Abu Abdurrahman, Abu Aisha, Abu Maryam, Abu Anas, and so on and so forth. So if you have a kunya, it is lawful for your children to refer to you by way of your kunya, as we have seen Salim refer to his father Abdullah by way of his kunya, saying Abu Abdurrahman, and just as we have heard Abdullah ibn Umar referring to his father Umar as Abu Hafs by way of his kunya, Abu Hafs. I think it will suffice for us to stop here today. We can take a few questions. Bi-Iznillah, we'll be starting our discussions about Silatul Rahim in the next class tomorrow, inshallah. May Allah protect us till then and thereafter. Abu Yusuf.
Jazakumullah khairan ya Sheikh.
Ameen. Wa antum jazakumullah khair.
The first question says, regarding not calling our by their name, There is a report of Al-Adabul Mufrad where he said, I said the messenger of Allah said something, and you say Abu Bakr Umar said. How do we relate that?
Well, that statement of Umar, Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, he was reporting a case. He was not talking to his father. He was not talking to his father. He was not calling his father. He was not referring to his father. Like in this case, Salim was referring to his father. Salim was saying, my father, it's time for Salah. So he can't say, Abdullah, it's time for Salah. Salim wouldn't say that. This is what we are talking about. Salim should not say, Abdullah, it's time for Salah, by way of referring to his father. You must not call your father by his name like this. Or when you are talking about something else, you are reporting a case, and then he is saying, people say, he says, I say the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say this, and you are saying Abu Bakr and Umar say. Because when he made a statement, he said, call Abu Bakr, call Umar. So he is not saying himself. He is relating what people say. If I say the Prophet says something, you should not come and say, call Abu Bakr and Umar. So he's not saying that he is referring to his father. He is not calling his father directly by that name. Neither was he himself even reporting and mentioning Umar. He was rather saying, you say that's Umar. He's saying, you are saying that's Umar. So there's no contradiction at all between the reports. So the correct thing is that the child does not refer to his father, call his father by his name. He wants to say, my father, and then instead of that, he says, Abdurrazak, by way of referring to that father. This is not from good character amongst we Muslims. And I think that's clear, inshallah.
Now, another question says, can we call our parents by the combinations of their initials, like saying IBK?
It is also from the aspects of referring to their names. You have just shortened his own way of bypassing the man. You have just called the man by his name. If his name is Ibrahim Abdurrauf, that is IA. You start saying IA. You are just calling him by his name through another means. Don't refer to your parents by their names.
Another question says, in Yoruba land, our elders walk behind the younger ones for protection purpose. How are we going to make
that is not in every case. And we have not come here, we have not established this class to tell us about Yoruba culture. We are telling us about what the companions were upon with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that cuts across cultures. And we say that if there is a need that the child goes in front, perhaps there's a harm in front or there's a harm behind. If there's a pressing need for that, yes. But that's not the norm. That's not the norm. The norm is that the child should not walk in front of the parents. This is the basic rule. Now, if there's a pressing need for whatever reason, there's a pressing need for the father to say, okay, walk in front. I'm coming behind you. This is something else. So these kinds of situations should not be employed as a basic rule and does not contradict the basic rule of the child not walking in front of his parents. There's no contradiction between them. And then we should not be bringing Yoruba culture, Yoruba. We are not here to discuss the Yoruba culture. I think we can do that in other platforms. What we have come here to tell us about what the Prophet was upon, what the companions were upon. Radiallahu anhum. May Allah protect us.
This question says, I would like to ask our Sheikh how we should relate with hadith that are weak generally.
Well, we should relate with hadith that are weak generally by knowing them and knowing their meanings, so that when people quote them, we know that these are weak reports, essentially. The early Muslims used to, even some of them would, like some of the scholars would, know those weak hadiths, so that when people say this is a hadith, like we have in our generation now, every person is typing a hadith in WhatsApp and Facebook and sending it across. How many times do we hear people asking, Abu Naasir, is this hadith authentic? Abu Naasir, is this hadith unauthentic? So if you know that a hadith is common amongst the people and it is weak hadith, you can just know it for keeps so that you recognize that this is a weak hadith. So that whenever anybody sends it to you, say, hey, look, this is a weak hadith. It is not an authentic statement that you can guarantee that the Prophet said it. This is the meaning when we say a hadith is weak. It means that we cannot be affirmative to say that it was a statement from the Prophet Muhammad. So we set it aside until we can find something that is authentic to show that the meaning is correct. Otherwise, we set it aside. Our deen has been based on the things that have been guaranteed to be authentic from the Prophet Muhammad. So this is generally how to relate with ahadith that are weak. That doesn't mean we will not know them, we will not know their meanings, as we have explained. The early Muslims used to explain ahadith even though they are weak. And then we understand that weak ahadith have categories. There are those that are fabricated, mawdu'at. Mawdu'at are generally considered as from the aspects of weak hadith too. So they are mawdu'at, they are manakir, hadith that are just widely strange. They are strange. They are just next in category to hadiths that are fabricated. There are different grades. And there are hadiths that are only mildly weak. Only mildly weak. Like the kinds of hadiths that we have seen in this book, Al-Adabul Mufrad. Their weakness is very, very mild. Their weakness is very, very mild. And most times you would find an authentic hadith that generally has the meaning in that hadith. So this is the category of the hadith that you find in a book like Al-Adabul Mufrad. Very, very mildly weak, and they are very, very few too in their numbers. So if you find a mildly weak hadith like this, but the question is, if you are not a learned person in the science of hadith, how do you know whether the hadith is mildly weak or very weak or fabricated? So it means, one, you have to seek good knowledge to be able to know how to deal with a hadith that are weak. You need good knowledge of the science of hadith, not those ones that you read from translation works. Because we begin to find that some of the people sat down to start reading some translated works from some websites and all this, and then after reading those things, they think that they are now learned as far as the science of hadith is concerned. This is not what I'm talking about. You learn, you get into the door, you get into the house from its doors. You learn as is appropriate. You learn Arabic, and then you learn these things from those who are learned, who have also learned it from those who are proficient in it. You don't say because you know English language, then that makes you be able to defend a case in court. Someone says, I have obtained PhD in English language. So he can read and understand the Constitution and the laws. And then he goes to court to defend the case. We know that this is not the case. So why do we do that regarding the religion? Someone just goes and reads some cut-out materials from translated material. And then he comes to say, oh, I'm now a scholar of hadith. How do you say that? How unfair are you to your religion? So now, if you can't say the difference between a mildly weak hadith and a very weak hadith and a very, very weak hadith and a fabricated hadith, you don't know how to differentiate with it. It means you still have to be relying on the statements of the scholars regarding these kinds of things to know what to do regarding a hadith. The general issue about it is that don't bother yourself. Once you hear that a hadith is weak, it's not bad to know. It's not bad to know the meanings of these ahadith, to know what they mean, but don't set your minds on them. It's always set them aside, because some weak ahadith have very, very dangerous meanings and implications. Set weak ahadith aside. You'll be able to handle them more if you have more knowledge about Islam. You'll be able to handle them more. You'll be able to relate with them more if you have more knowledge. Or if you just, the average Muslim, just set weak ahadith, just set them aside. Allahu Akbar. I think we can make this the last question.
This one says their name apply to the stepfather?
Yes, it applies to it because it's in the position of the father. Likewise, our aunts, paternal and maternal, they are in the position of the parents. They are in the position of the father. And the paternal aunts too, and maternal aunts too are in the positions of the mother. So the ruling will be applicable to them, inshallah. I think we can stop here, inshallah.
No.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.